Get some! Welcome to the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. We got a hell of a show for you as always. Lots of drama about the presidential race, let alone all the other news. All right, so let's get going. Anna, what's up?
All right, let's get started with everyone from corporate media to the Democratic establishment trying to make Gavin Newsom a thing.
President Biden doesn't run, why shouldn't we consider you a likely candidate?
Well, I think the vice president is naturally the one lined up, and the filing deadlines are quickly coming to pass, and I think we need to move past this notion that he's not going to run.
Both corporate media figures and campaign donors are urging Newsom to run for president because Biden is considered too old. But Newsom says that Kamala is actually the one who's next in line. Let's hear the rest of what he has to say during this interview with Chuck Todd.
President Biden is going to run, and looking forward to getting him reelected. I think there's been so much wallowing in the last few months and hand-wringing in this respect, but we're gearing up for the campaign. We're looking forward to it.
But you hear these calls privately. What do you tell these donors who are wallowing in this?
Time to move on. Let's go.
What do you tell the donors? What do you tell the donors? Because the donors are the most important, right? The donors urging you to vote, urging you to run for president, really important. What do you tell them? Now, despite Newsom claiming to have a warm relationship with Kamala Harris, and despite him saying, no, Kamala Harris is next in line, he did mention something fascinating in the context of this interview, some bad blood with Kamala Harris allies. We'll get to that in a moment, but Cenk, what are your thoughts so far?
So, one of the things that bothers me the most, the thing that bothers me the most about Gavin Newsom is how inauthentic he is and how good, smart people can't see it. I can't believe you can't see it. So he goes on so that he can be asked that question by Chuck Todd. He knows that if he goes on, every corporate media anchor is going to ask him, well, we've been hearing the calls from donors. Oh, okay. They're so brazen now. They don't even give a goddamn about the voters. Anyway, we've been hearing the calls that it should be you, Batman. He's like, oh, me? Well, golly gee, I didn't know you were gonna ask me that. No, I'm a hero, I won't do it. I listen to Democratic leaders. And I think Kamala Harris is next. No, you don't. Come on, guys. Look, you see me sometimes attacking the mainstream Democrats. But don't get me wrong, I don't dislike them. Are you crazy? They're my family, friends, my neighbors, I know them. So I'm asking you, mainstream Democrats, you don't know that's inauthentic? That behind the scenes, of course he's planning to run against Kamala at a minimum in 2028, and he wants to drive up speculation that he should replace Biden. That's why he's doing the interview. Please learn politics.
Now, in the next video, he talks specifically about how, he really respects Kamala Harris, and he really doesn't want to step on her feet. So
no, he doesn't.
Let's take a look at what he has to say.
And am I supposed to interpret that comment about the vice president that if for some reason the president chose not to run at this point,
well, that's the next,
everybody rallies around her?
It's the Biden-Harris administration. That's maybe I'm a little old-fashioned.
Yeah,
maybe I'm a little old-fashioned about presidents and vice presidents. I was a lieutenant governor, so I'm a little subjective.
What's your relationship with the vice president?
We knew each other before we were both in politics. The day I got sworn in as mayor, walked across the street. She got sworn in as district attorney. Extraordinarily close working relationship, including her time in the Senate.
So you can't imagine ever having to run against each other?
Of course not. By definition, won't happen.
Now, even though they have a friendly relationship, according to what he says, apparently there had been some jabs directed toward Gavin Newsom. I want you to just go to this one video real quick.
Before you go to the jabs, guys, just on that alone, you can't tell that he's lying? Oh no, I respect, I guarantee you right now ahead of time, I will predict for you. He will, when he runs against Kamala Harris, he will say, oh, things have changed. I didn't know that X, Y, or Z is gonna happen. It's totally different. You don't think he's planning to run against Kamala Harris? Please don't pull a Trump cult and pretend that this guy is authentic.
Well, clearly you're not the only one who thinks that, Cenk, because again, Newsom's been dealing with some jabs here and there from individuals aligned with Kamala Harris. Let's go to the next video.
We privately continue to maintain a very good relationship, interpersonal, just how you doing, checking in. It's been a challenging few years with COVID, and we've had the opportunity to sit down, have lunch together in the White House. We spend time talking about important things.
So nobody's upset. She's not upset that you're going to debate Ron DeSantis?
Maybe. Apparently someone in her office is, because I read some off-the-record quotes. I wish I knew who that was, but I don't hear it from her. So, and I'm certainly not hearing it from the White House itself.
Well, that individual probably knows that you're a massive sleazebag and that you're a liar. And the whole reason why you have set up a debate with Ron DeSantis, who is literally running for president in the GOP ticket, is because you plan to run for president. Like I can't stand the lies. I can't stand the man, period. So I'm gonna be clear with the audience. I already have a massive bias against Gavin Newsom over his handling of California, his leadership in California, over his willingness to bail out a utility company that burned down entire towns in this state and destroyed lives, led to dozens of deaths in the state. Okay, he bailed them out. I can't stand the guy. But on top of it, he's a sleazy liar. And that makes it even worse.
So I'm not quote unquote biased against him. I think he's a corporate Democrat, like all corporate Democrats. And PG&E were his sponsors in a sense, gave him $10 million. We've told you all of his downsides. We've told you some of his upsides. But to me, it drives me crazy that they can't tell that conversation between Chuck Todd and Gavin Newsom is totally contrived, 100% theater. They're putting on a play for you guys. And you could tell from his answer about Kamala Harris's office that they're not getting along. So look, if you're a mainstream Democrat, let me lay down a marker for you guys. So if Gavin Newsom doesn't run in 2024 or 2028 because Biden and Kamala Harris are in those races, then you guys win and you shouldn't watch the show. Apparently, I don't know what I'm talking about. But if I'm right, can you come back and go, okay, I get it. It turns out mainstream media lies to us 24/7 and it's all theater and you guys were right. Of course Gavin's gonna run in 28 at a minimum, and he doesn't give a goddamn that Kamala Harris runs or doesn't run, okay? And that's not the question. The only question is whether he's running in 2024. And he won't run against Biden because he's a standard corporate Democrat and they follow orders, okay? But if something happens to Biden, they're sending in Gavin the very next second. He's already prepared.
Yeah, and he's preordained. I think it's important to keep that in mind as well. It's probably why someone from Kamala Harris's office isn't so happy with him. But I do want to now shift over to Vice President Kamala Harris because she had an interview over the weekend as well with Margaret Brennan. And she was asked an incredibly important question, which she pretended to not understand. But I do think it's a legitimate question. Let's hear what she had to say.
But even Democrats are worried about the president's age. The Wall Street Journal had a poll showing 2/3 of Democrats say Joe Biden is too old to run again. Are you prepared to be commander-in-chief?
Yes, I am, if necessary. But Joe Biden is going to be fine. And let me tell you something. I work with Joe Biden every day. Under Joe Biden's leadership, we have transformed and are in the process of transforming America's infrastructure.
Are you taking the threat of a second Trump presidency seriously enough?
I don't understand the question.
You were dismissive of some of the Republican criticism of you and the president. When you look at current polling, the front runner for a Republican nomination is the former president, the 45th president.
We will win re-election. We will win re-election. There is too much at stake and the American people know it.
And I feel like that is what the Biden administration is planning to hang its hat on, right? More of this fear-mongering campaign about what a threat Donald Trump is, which isn't gonna work this time around. I am concerned about that. You look at the polling, you look at the average of the polls that have come out already, basically showing how Biden would perform against Donald Trump if the general election were to take place today. And it is too close to call. It's within the margin of error. They're neck and neck. So that is a legitimate question. It is a legitimate concern. But there are significant upsides and downsides to both scenarios. The scenario where Biden decides, you know what, I'm gonna drop out, I'm not gonna run for re-election. And also the scenario where he decides to run for re-election, because again, there is a decent chance that he could lose if he is up against Trump in the general.
Yeah, so let me break down all the ways that this doesn't make sense. First of all, what do you mean you don't understand the question? Are you pretending to be surprised that Trump might win? He's winning right now in the polling. He's beating you in the polling right now. If you're surprised by that, retire, because that means you don't have any idea what's happening in American politics. If you're not surprised by that, what do you mean you don't understand the question? What's the hard part of the question? I don't get it. She's just asking you, hey, you guys are tied. Are you taking him too lightly? And in a sense, she validates the question by taking him too lightly. She's like, oh, we're just gonna win. Don't worry about it, we're gonna win. No, I'm worried about it. I'm really, really worried about it. Which goes to the main thing she said. No, this is the most important election of our lives, etc. Then why are we running you guys? Both you and Biden are super unpopular. You're sitting in the 30s. In the 30s. Someone sitting in the 30s has almost no chance of winning, especially an incumbent. So why are we running you guys? If it's the most important election of our lifetimes, by definition, we should not run you guys. Biden squeaked out a victory last time. He's down 15 points since then. 15 points, almost a 0% chance of winning. Okay, so I'm asking you guys to do this, tyt.com/dropout, sign the petition, please drop out, please drop out. It can't be the most important election of our lifetimes, and we should run Joe Biden, who can't finish a sentence. Sorry, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, over the weekend, he had some difficulty finishing a thought he had during a presser he was holding in Vietnam. This was following the G20 summit in India, and I don't want to give too much away. Let's take a look at what happened.
As a matter of fact, I think it's less likely to cause that kind of conflict. Anyway, I just think that there are other things on leaders' minds, and they respond to what's needed at the time. And look, nobody likes having celebrated international meetings if you don't know what you want at the meeting. If you don't have a game plan. He may have a game plan. He just hasn't shared it with me. But I tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
It's just not good. That's not good. It's very, very bad. So just to give you further context, he was asked by a VOA reporter whether him not meeting with Xi Jinping for the last 10 months is an issue, if that's leading to increased tension between the United States and China. And in answering that question, you can tell he kind of just trails off at one point and then announces his bedtime.
Yeah, look, guys, I basically did the equivalent of a red eye to get there, and I get it. But this is not time to be self-effacing, especially as you're giving a meandering answer that no one could really discern what you were saying. And you gotta stop saying things that make you look 200. So also in that trip, he referenced climate deniers and was insulting them. Great, awesome, no problem. He called them the same thing he did on the campaign trail in 2020, lying dog-faced pony soldiers. What is that? If that's a reference from the 1950s, it's lost on the rest of us. Stop it, stop it. But he can't help himself because, guys, once you're in your 80s, I love you, and it doesn't happen to everybody, okay? But sometimes you get stubborn. And sometimes you can't see things straight. And he's like, no, I'm gonna run, I gotta go take a nap. You lying dog-faced pony soldier, corn pop, etc. This is madness to go into the election with Biden. Total madness. I don't care what anyone in corporate media says. This is a near guaranteed defeat. So go ahead, go ahead. Oh, you're helping Trump by pointing out things that are obvious. No, I'm trying to win the election. If it's really important, we have to win it. I'm not even worried about progressives anymore. None of them had the courage to run other than Marianne Williamson. I don't give a goddamn about them. I just want a human being who can beat Trump, which is the easiest thing in the world. Pick a guy off the street. Pick a guy off the street and he'll beat Trump because Trump is so unpopular. The one guy who might not be able to beat him is that guy. But nope, we all have to bow our heads to power. Power is so important. Power can kiss my ass. We gotta beat Trump, and that's not the guy who's gonna do it.
Look, this is one of the hardest stories I've had to make my mind up about in my entire career, really, because again, there are negatives to both scenarios. First off, I think that we're kind of discounting and downplaying, and it's not our fault. It's part of the Biden administration's failure in marketing their accomplishments and their achievements. But I can't emphasize enough how good the NLRB has been under Biden, right? The fact that yes, he squashed the rail worker strike, but behind the scenes secured the PTO that the rail workers wanted, okay? The fact that he actually reworked, he didn't give up, he reworked his student loan plan, forgiveness plan, and finally got something to pass that stands, that will not be struck down by the Supreme Court. There are good things that have come out of the Biden administration. I am concerned about what will replace Biden. Just because I look at the options and I'm not happy with the options.
So look,
but at the same time, I acknowledge that based on the polling, based on the average of the polls that have come out, there's a very good chance that Trump could beat Biden as it stands today. And that is a concern as well. So I hear what you're saying, but it is not as easy and it is not as black and white as you.
It is, it's super black and white. Let me explain why I think that is, okay? So it's not that Anna is wrong about what she's saying. Biden accomplished 15, maybe even 20% of his agenda.
Which is more than most Democratic presidents.
Yes, for a Democratic president, that's like, whoa, he bothered to do anything at all.
True.
Bravo, bravo. And not everything he said was a lie. Our bar is so low for Democrats that when they do 15% of their agenda, we're like, oh, that's not so bad, right? FDR 2.0. He didn't do voting rights, he didn't do higher minimum wage, he didn't do paid family leave, he didn't propose public option, he didn't do 80% of his agenda at all. So let's just be clear about that. But this isn't about that. Because I don't even have a progressive to run against him. Like literally no one will run. Because, oh no, what will the media say about me? Okay, okay, go ask the Congress people yourself. Go ask the politicians yourselves.
Who would you want to run, Cenk?
Okay,
who would you?
No, don't pull a mainstream media and tell me who would I rather.
No, but I'm genuinely curious because I'm thinking about possible progressive candidates. You think I haven't thought about this? Of course I've thought about this deeply. I can't think of a progressive that would have a shot at winning, genuinely, right? Honestly, one of the progressives I like is Khanna. Okay, does Khanna have the name recognition necessary to eke out a win in the primary, especially against a sleazeball like Gavin Newsom?
So there are good to great progressives in the country. Of course, if they ran, would it be in this current environment with Biden still in the race, would it be hard to beat Biden? Of course it would be hard to beat Biden because all of mainstream media is going to pile on top of you, crap all over you, and say, how dare you raise your head? And they're going to try to banish you from the Democratic Party forever and ever, let alone the character assassinations that are definitely going to follow.
By the way, as they're urging Gavin Newsom to run.
Yeah,
just keep
of
that
course. All the Chuck Todds, all of them. They would go, come on, Gavin, get in, come on, Gavin, You, Khanna, any progressive, you better not do it, okay? So you see with your own eyes. Like the minute any progressive is suggested, they go, ha, and they laugh like that. They're maniacs. And meanwhile, he's fluffing Gavin. Come on, Gavin, you're the best corporate candidate. I love how slick your hair is, Gavin, okay? So I know you're gonna get hit with all of that. But I'm asking someone in politics, because if you're outside of politics, unless you're a billionaire, the press will hate you and will try to bury you, okay? So if you're in politics, I'm asking you to run because I need someone with courage. But we don't have anybody with courage. Let's keep it real. They're all following orders. So that's why I'm telling you, Anna, I've gotten to a nadir where I'm saying, I don't think we're gonna get a progressive candidate to run other than Marianne, and she's not pulling any closer right now. So I'm saying, I don't wanna lose to Trump. Forget anything but losing to Trump. And Biden is a near guaranteed loss. His chances are near 0%. So I know that sounds crazy because they're tied in the polls, right? But incumbents have a massive disadvantage. That is why when an incumbent is under 50, he's in big trouble. This brother's down under 40. He's down under 40. He has almost no chance of winning. And the only reason why we're having this discussion is because corporate media tells you, you must bow your head to any Democratic leader. It doesn't matter if he's 80. It doesn't matter if he can't finish a sentence. Nothing matters. Nothing matters. You must listen to authority. And that is not a left-wing position. That is not a progressive position. Our position should be give us the best candidate and let him run. Maybe one of the governors is halfway decent. Maybe Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania is not so bad. I don't know. Give me any Democratic governor, even the corporate stooges. In fact, most of them are corporate. I'm past that. Give me someone with a pulse that knows how to fight and can beat Trump instead of just sitting there like a lump on a leg. He hasn't said one word about Trump. He hasn't said one word about what he would do in his next term. He's barely running. He's barely breathing. And we're all supposed to bow our heads. No, this is not a close question. Give me anyone else. I'll take Bob off the street. Biden's gonna lose. Here, I don't want you to quote me later. I don't want it to be Biden. I don't want to be proven right. We'll put the link down below, tyt.com/dropout. Get it to 1 million. Get it to 1 million. Maybe the Chuck Todds of the world will listen because they'll get excited that it'll be their friend Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer or Pete Buttigieg.
All right, when we come back from the break, we'll get into this pretty stunning interview that Christie had on Fox News. He is not backing down from Donald Trump. That and more coming up. Don't miss it.
I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
All right, back on TOT. I'm gonna start with Twitch. Envy Susie writes, and next up, Joe Manchin against Biden and the effer will win. So look, guys, that's another problem. If Biden runs, Joe Manchin might run. And if Joe Manchin runs, then Trump is a guaranteed win, guaranteed. What are we doing? What are we doing? Okay, also, same person also wrote in, thank you for the sub, Metal Turtle 571, you're the best. We all appreciate you guys. When you guys gift and others get it and appreciate it, I love it, it warms my heart, thank you. Mattis Jenk wrote in, hey Jenk, Justice is here. I picked up your book at Barnes & Noble this past weekend. I didn't even know you could do that. You could pick it up at Barnes & Noble now? Okay, I'm gonna look into that. That's amazing, thank you for doing that. I've been watching for so long. You all feel like family, I appreciate all you do. You've all strengthened my progressive values when they needed it. Thank you all so much, love you all. Thank you and we love you. Everybody, you can pick up the book at tyt.com/justice. We're basically into the last week here. If we can get on the bestseller list, that would be amazing. And guys, by the way, it's tyt.com/justice. But I mean, let me say one thing, last thing about the book, not last thing, at least for this break. If I get on the bestseller list, let's be honest, it isn't really me, it's you guys. Because no one's really read the book yet, other than the reviewers. And so, if the book sales keep going after that because it was a good book, great, then I'm happy to take a little bit of the credit. But it would be you guys getting on the bestseller list. Keep it real. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for even doing it, trying it, buying a single book. I love you guys. Duwu87 says, all right, 26 months, let's go. See you in Brooklyn, Jenk, TYT strong. Yes, so not this Friday, but next Friday, I'm gonna be in Brooklyn doing a book reading at the Powerhouse Arena. More of a Q&A. Colby Hull's gonna ask me some questions, then you guys are gonna ask me questions. Then we do book signing, that's tyt.com/events. BDog9499 says, closing out another summer with my faves, making my Monday better already. We appreciate you. Uriah Heap writes in our member section on tyt.com. New poll, Newsom or Crisco, what's more greasy?
Nothing's more greasier than Newsom.
Okay, Anna's gonna vote on that poll and we know how she's gonna vote. All right, Dragonfire Mathematician X says, Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris have the same stockbroker. These two monsters are the poster children for why our politics and particularly the Democratic Party is completely broken. And it's why a fascist American state is inevitable. It's just a question of how long it takes for us to get there and which of these monsters accomplishes what Trump failed to do in 2020. I don't think it's inevitable, as you'll see. I think, look, I've got Hopeful news at the end of the book for you guys, and I've been telling you a lot about different parts of it that give me hope, but we've got to get there, and we can't get there if there's a fascist in charge and ends elections. That is the only way we don't win, and the Democrats are very busy trying to snap defeat from the jaws of victory. All right, and Sarah Layla says, I watched MTP yesterday and thought of you, Anna, and couldn't wait for this response. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, Duve, Dev, Dippity, Esoteric Soul, Donald's Duty Berry. I'm amused by all of these. Charles Mellison. They all joined. Everybody who joins as part of TYT and helps make this show possible. Thank you for bringing a little hope into the world and for letting us do honest news coverage. Anna.
All right, let's move on to the Republican side of the election.
Well, if he doesn't do any of the debates, Howie, we're gonna give him another chance. I'm sure he's not coming to the Reagan debate. We'll give him another chance in Alabama, but if he doesn't come there, then I'm gonna follow him around the country. Wherever he goes, I'll go. And we'll wind up talking to each other one way or the other, and he knows that's true. You're gonna change your travel schedule to go where Trump goes, just so I'm clear. You bet.
Christie is not backing down from Donald Trump. In fact, he demands a debate with Donald Trump. Of course, he skipped out on the first GOP primary debate. And Christie says, you know what, I'll follow him around the country if I need to in order to secure a debate. Now, he's very critical of Trump's decision to skip these debates and essentially skirt his responsibilities as a GOP candidate. And he even calls him a coward for avoiding the debate with 8 qualifying candidates. He said, quote, there's no other conclusion to come to that he's both afraid of me and he's afraid of defending his record. And if I had his record, I'd be nervous about showing up too. So look, he still has a massive gap to close. Trump is still ahead by a lot. He's first in the polling for the GOP primaries. Let me give you an example. This is the national GOP RCP poll averages, Real Clear Politics, of course. So the average indicates that Trump is at 53.4%, DeSantis is at 13.9%, Ramaswamy is 6.8%, Haley is 5.9%. Christie doesn't even register on that poll. So it doesn't look good for Christie so far, although he seems to be doing pretty well in Iowa right now. So I don't know, I think maybe these attacks could be helping him a little bit. What do you think, Cenk?
He's not doing bad in Iowa. He's doing pretty well in New Hampshire, where he's now pulled in a second place tie with Ron DeSantis. So the voters in Iowa and New Hampshire get a lot more politics than the rest of the country and a lot more attention. So they know the candidates a little bit better. And if you win in Iowa and New Hampshire, it could change the dynamics overall of the race. And so Christie's a rare Republican candidate that could beat Trump, in my opinion. It would be extraordinarily difficult, near miraculous. I don't think it's easy by any stretch of the imagination. And he'd have to somehow win over the Trump guys who now despise him, and that are the great majority of the Republican Party. I'm aware of the odds, okay? But the reason why I've said all along that he has a shot, because at least like the rest, unlike the rest of them, he's not a coward. He's not afraid of hitting Donald Trump. It didn't take him months and months of polling and consulting to get to a point where he could lightly criticize Trump, which is where 80% of the other Republican candidates are. So look, now to the downside of Christie, he's done this before, which is follow Trump around the country. But back then he was his lapdog.
That's right, and it didn't work out so well for him.
Yeah, so now all of a sudden he's a tough guy and he's fighting against Trump, but at least he's unreserved about fighting against Trump, and he's very clear about it. And I think that the voters in those 2 early states are noticing. In fact, I would give him more suggestions on how to attack Trump as coward and weak, which are good lines of attack, as opposed to racist or sexist, which is not a good line of attack in a Republican primary. So he's got the right strategy. Let's see if he can get some momentum in New Hampshire and Iowa, and if that translates into any further momentum nationally.
Now, there are 2 other clips from his conversation with Howard Kurtz that I think are important to look at, especially because there's a different line of attack. It's not quite, the coward. He did obviously call him a coward, but there's something else that he's been calling Trump that I think could be effective. So let's take a look at the next video.
There is a number in the latest Wall Street Journal poll that really jumped out at me. It said that there was a 73%
negative or disapproval rating among Republicans for you. And I wonder, is that the price you pay for coming out swinging?
That's the price you pay for telling the truth. And you know what, Howie? I don't believe that number will last. I absolutely, for one, I don't believe it's accurate, but two, I don't believe it'll last in whatever form it's in. But you can't decide whether to tell the truth or not based upon some poll that they take at a snapshot in time by the Wall Street Journal. What you have to do is tell the truth.
Look, I agree with the sentiment, but it's not just one poll. He's not even registering in a lot of these polls. And what we showed you earlier was the average of the GOP primary polling. However, I do want to go to one more video, and I'll talk a little bit about what I think Christie is doing right here.
If Donald Trump had quietly retired to Mar-a-Lago and not contested the election, would you have run?
Well, look, I don't know what I would have done, Howie, but I would tell you this, that what he did on election night to me disqualified him from being president of the United States again. When you go in front of the American people and lie to them on election night and say that you know the election's been stolen, when you had no evidence then and you have no evidence now that it was stolen, because it wasn't. He lost to Joe Biden. Now, I know his fragile ego can't deal with the idea that he lost to somebody like Joe Biden, who had never beaten anybody outside the state of Delaware before. But guess what, Donald? You lost to Joe Biden, and everything Joe Biden has done to harm this country since then is your responsibility, because your selfishness, your self-centeredness put him in the White House.
I really think that the line of attack in calling Donald Trump a loser could also work, right? A 100%. Coward and a loser. Oh, you don't like Biden? You don't like what Biden's done with the country? Obviously, I'm speaking as someone who would try to appeal or make a persuasive argument to Republican voters. If you don't like the Biden administration and everything that it's brought before you, consider the fact that Biden wouldn't be here if Trump weren't such a loser, right? That could be an effective strategy. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm very curious to see how it plays out.
Oh, no, it's definitely the right strategy, definitely. But he needs to add more meat to those bones. So you got to provide an example every time you go on TV. He's a loser, like his 6 bankruptcies. He just keeps losing. Then he lost to Joe Biden. Come on, who loses to Joe Biden? Or next time you go on, who loses to Joe Biden? I can't believe he lost to Joe Biden. Isn't Joe Biden nearly brain dead? I don't believe that, but I'm saying, like, I wouldn't go that far, let's put it that way. But for Republicans, they'll love that kind of talk. And then you add, oh, remember, like he lost the case on Trump Charity and the Trump University. And he lost both those cases and had to pay $25 million and had to pay $2 million because he was running a fake university. I would give 100 other examples of how you knock them down with Republicans. But at least Christie is on the right path. And I don't see any other Republican on the right path. All other Republicans are either going corporate robot path, which is no chance of winning, or you've got Vivek Ramaswamy going on the, I love Donald Trump. I would kiss Donald Trump on the left ass and the right ass. Yeah! Well, how are you gonna beat him if you're too busy kneeling down and kissing his ass? So the only person that has any chance of success is Christie in that primary, even though he's polling so badly. And I'm not in the mainstream group that's like, hey, I agree with Christie. I bet Republicans agree with me. No, right now they don't agree with us. But there's at least a pathway where you can get there as opposed to the others. But I wanted to quote one of our members because there's such a good point. Our guy wrote in, gotta respect Christie's fighting spirit. Wish we saw some of that on the Democrat side. And that's what every time I look at Christie, I think, how pathetic is the Democratic Party? There isn't a single person in the Democratic Party making the same points Christie is. You know that you guys are going to be very, very likely running against Donald Trump. He has a 40-point lead right now in the Republican primary. But Joe Biden's like, no, I'm above it. Above it? Above it? No, every day you don't attack Donald Trump on things that could hurt him, you lose voters. You lose more and more and more potential voters because you were too lazy or too ignorant about politics or too addled to figure out that Trump's your opponent and you've got to go fight him. If you leave the fighting of Trump to Christie, a Republican, that's basically Democrats saying we're losers. We don't even know how to fight. We're just gonna sit there and hope we win because our name isn't Donald Trump. It's pathetic.
All right, let's switch gears entirely and move on to the Senate, where, of course, we have a number of senators who are pretty up high there with their age, and Dianne Feinstein is no exception.
It's my job, it's my responsibility. If we have to do it, we'll do it.
You're gonna abide by your pledge?
Yeah, interim appointment. I don't want to get involved in the primary.
So no, you would not appoint anybody that is filed for this race?
It would be completely unfair.
California Governor Gavin Newsom made it pretty clear to Chuck Todd over the weekend that if Senator Dianne Feinstein were to resign before her term is up as a result of her age and as a result of her cognitive decline, of course, he would not appoint someone already vying for her Senate seat, namely progressive Barbara Lee. Now, this is a prediction that Jake and I have had on the show. It is unsurprising to me that he is basically now taking back a promise he had made earlier. Newsom pledged multiple times in the past that he would appoint a black woman if Senator Dianne Feinstein were to step down, like he did in this interview with Joy Reid back in 2021.
If in fact Dianne Feinstein were to retire, will you nominate an African-American woman to restore the seat that Kamala Harris is no longer in the United States Senate? And do you have a name in mind?
I have multiple names in mind. We have multiple names in mind, and the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. Except, of course, one of those black women happened to be a progressive, and the Democratic establishment is trying to install an establishment politician in that seat instead. Now, Barbara Lee, who has entered the Senate race in California, is a black woman. She is a progressive. Katie Porter and Adam Schiff are also vying for that same Senate seat. But as I mentioned earlier, Schiff is the establishment favorite to replace Feinstein. And that's the reason why Gavin Newsom doesn't want to appoint a black woman, because as soon as he does, she is then the incumbent, right? She would have to, of course, defend that seat in the Senate race, but there's a better shot at her actually remaining in place. And Gavin Newsom is very, very concerned, allegedly, about keeping the election fair, and therefore will not choose her as his appointment. One more video, let's take a look.
We're aligned with Feinstein in her office.
Sounds like you hope you don't have to make another appointment.
No, I don't want to make another appointment. I don't think the people of California want me to make another appointment.
Because you'd end up appointing both seats, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that's, that said, it's my job, it's my responsibility. If we have to do it, we'll do it.
You're gonna abide by your pledge?
Yeah, interim appointment. I don't want to get involved in the primary.
So no, you would not appoint anybody that is filed for this race?
It would be completely unfair to the Democrats that have worked their tail off. That primary is just a matter of months away. I don't want to tip the balance of that.
But you're going to abide by, it would be essentially a caretaker, an African-American woman.
We hope we never have to make this decision, but I abide by what I've said very publicly on a consistent basis, yes.
And look, the other disadvantage that Barbara Lee has at the moment is that, of course, Schiff and Porter have outraised her in this election. So they have far more resources to run against her. But it is incredible to me that Gavin Newsom is pretending like his top concern here is fairness. And also this notion, like he wants the cookies when he's asked by Joy Reid whether he will appoint a black woman, right? He wants to appear inclusive. He wants to play the identity politics just right for the Democratic voters. But when push comes to shove, when the situation gets real, and when he has an opportunity to appoint a progressive black woman, well, she's a progressive, and my buddies in the Democratic Party want Schiff in that seat instead. So no, I'm not gonna do it. That's what's really going on here.
So, look, guys, I feel like sometimes I hurt people's feelings when I say things that are true about politics. So, like you guys know, right? Most of you that watch the show know. Like none of this stuff is true. So he's like, oh, I just don't want to make another appointment. You've made countless appointments. Now you're drawing the line. All of a sudden, when it would be a progressive, now all of a sudden, you're worried about making appointments.
She just wants to be fair, James.
Now, every time you made an appointment, it was for a corporate establishment Democrat. But the minute you said a black woman and Barbara Lee's the obvious choice, all of a sudden you don't want to make appointments anymore, okay? You just found that was somehow that was the straw that broke the camel's. Not because she's progressive. No. Just because That was just the exact right limit number of appointments. Come on. And with the voting months away, is it? It's not that close.
No, it's not.
And by the way, Feinstein has been in this situation for years. But you didn't want to appoint Barbara Lee because she's a progressive, and you want Adam Schiff to win because he's from your wing of the party, corporate establishment Democrat, and you guys and Nancy Pelosi work very closely together. You have an alliance, and then you pretend that you care about Dianne Feinstein like you guys are real friends. He said that many times in that interview. If my friend clearly had dementia, I wouldn't wheel her into the Senate for my own political purposes. It's disgusting. So I don't believe a word you're saying. And we know exactly why you're not appointing Barbara Lee. And by the way, I'm not necessarily in favor of Barbara Lee for that Senate seat. I might rather vote for Katie Porter. I haven't made up my mind. And yes, it would give Barbara Lee a little bit of an advantage over Katie Porter. But I, unlike Gavin Newsom, actually care about things that are right and fair. You said you'd appoint an African-American woman. Clearly someone has to be appointed. Dianne Feinstein no longer has a mind. Sorry if that hurts your feelings, but she doesn't. She literally has no idea what's going on. None, and everyone knows it. It's a joke. You're making a mockery of the system, and then you wonder why people lose faith in institutions.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are two issues here, in my opinion. So issue number one is we literally have a United States senator in the Senate who is unable to do her job and cannot function due to her cognitive decline and her age. I mean, we see it, we've all seen it. She missed several months of the session because of the fact that she was ill with shingles. And then they wheeled her into the Senate, and she looked like a mess. It is insanely cruel and it's awful. So there's that side of it. There's also the fact, and this is a bigger, broader point that I'm trying to make about the Democratic Party, namely slimy politicians like Gavin Newsom. They want all of the kudos and they want the admiration and the applause for appearing as though they care about diversity, appearing as though they care about equality in America, when in reality, all they want to do is engage in theater and shallow gestures that they're hoping they'll never be held accountable for. But here it is, Gavin Newsom, all of a sudden, his worst nightmare comes to fruition where people are holding his feet to the fire and asking him, well, now's your opportunity. Are you gonna hold to your promise? And he's refusing to do it while pretending to be the moral one, right? That's the other part that drives me crazy, the moral grandstanding. Pretending as though you're doing this because you're trying to be fair. How is it fair for the people of California to currently be represented by a United States senator who cannot do her job, who doesn't even remember the fact that she gave her daughter power of attorney?
Yeah, she doesn't remember that she said she wasn't gonna run again. She doesn't remember the thing Chuck Schumer told her just a minute ago. She doesn't remember which hearing she's in. This is absurd. Guys, do you see it? This is the gaslighting that media does. Like, this is not a debatable issue. She has no ability to do that job right now. But it's become a debatable issue because why? Because now it's like, well, how much? On the one hand, she's clearly not capable of it. On the other hand, we must kiss the ass of the powerful and never question them. That's not an on the other hand. No, she's gotta go. Look, if you said to me, he's gonna put Adam Schiff in there, I would still say yes. Even though that was unbelievably unfair and the exact opposite of what he said. Why? Because we don't have a senator right now. We don't have a senator. You're destroying our faith in the institutions. One last thing that's a total nightmare about this. Because of Feinstein, they won't criticize McConnell, who also is having massive cognitive issues. So the Democrats have unilaterally surrendered on criticizing the heart of darkness, Mitch McConnell, because of Feinstein. And by the way, it's not her fault. She doesn't even know what's going on right now because of Gavin Newsom and Nancy Pelosi that are doing this facade and this charade with Feinstein's seat.
So Barbara Lee responded to Gavin Newsom's statements in that interview with Chuck Todd. I want to give you her statements, which she posted on X. I'm troubled by the governor's remarks. The idea that a black woman should be appointed only as a caretaker to simply check a box is insulting to countless black women across this country who have carried out the Democratic Party to victory, or carried the Democratic Party to victory, election after election. And she goes on to talk about the history of the Senate and how little black representation there is in the United States Senate, especially among black women. So, she's right in all of that, but it's look, if you're expecting Gavin Newsom to stay true to his promises, you're putting your faith behind one of the sleaziest politicians in the country.
All right, I mean, look at what he's saying, basically. He's saying, I'll only appoint an African-American woman if she's a token.
Yeah, that's exactly right, but that's what they do, Cenk.
That
is what they do. That is what they do. They weaponize race. They weaponize identity for their little political stunts. But when they have the opportunity to prove what they mean, they never do. Because they don't care about those issues at all. They never have, they never will. What they care about is their own political power. Gavin Newsom has proven that time and time again in this state, in California.
So in this case, they're saying the quiet part out loud. They're saying, if it's gonna be Barbara Lee, and by the way, for those of you who don't know, Barbara Lee was the sole vote against the war in Afghanistan. That lasted 20 years, was an absolute disaster. She had the courage after 9/11 to say this is not the right war, this is imperialistic, okay? So they don't want to put in a strong, independent-minded black woman. They're literally saying we will only do this if it's a token black woman who will do what she is ordered to do. It's disgusting.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll be back with a pretty crazy story involving Ginni Thomas, that is Justice Clarence Thomas's wife, and a nonprofit she founded just a few days prior to Citizens United. The story's incredible. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.
All right, back on TYT. There's a number of comments against me, so let me read those and work through it with you guys. First, actually, before that informational one, Shy Coltrane 42 asked, will the Brooklyn Arena be live streamed? A native New Yorker asking. Sorry, brother, they want people to come in person, so they're not live streaming it. And that's up to them. You can get tickets at tyt.com/events, but if you can't make it or you can't afford it, of course I understand, much love to you. Panther says, I'm tired of you, Cenk, of saying Joe Biden can't win the next election. Joe Biden is our best chance to win the 2024 presidential election. I'd love to ask you why you think that. Literally everyone on TV says that without ever saying why. There's no evidence to back that up at all. Anyway, you and Anna should look up and get Professor Alan Lichtman on your show. According to his book, 13 Keys to the Presidency, the party holding the seat has the incumbent key and no primary key. You will lose 2 keys if Biden doesn't run. Remember what happened in 1968. Well, remember what happened in 2020 and 2016. In 2020, the Democrats have a contentious, crowded primary and the Democrats win. In 2016, the Republicans have a contentious, crowded primary, and the Republicans win. So Alan Lichtman writing about 1968 and 1238 is irrelevant to me. But you know what, you want me to have Alan Lichtman on the show? I'm happy to have him on. I guarantee you he makes no sense, and he's talking about 50 years ago when I'm showing you the most recent elections. And I want Alan Lichtman or anyone else on TV, I challenge them, I dare them. Show me one time that anyone in media has ever said that an incumbent has an advantage if they're under 50%. I've heard a million times in my life, under 50% means you're gonna lose. He's under 40, and all of a sudden the rules changed, 1968, blah, blah, blah. I love you, brother, I do. But I have to tell you as a friend, what is real and what is not real. Clifton Lewis, in my opinion. Clifton Lewis writes in, Cenk, I love and respect you. Thank you, right back at you. I bought your book and I really think your points are valid with Biden. And yes, a Trump win would kill democracy. Brother, you flailing and asking for candidates and we don't have any clear choices? Shouldn't you save some artillery for the equally senile fascist Trump? Come on, Clifton, you watch this show? You see what I do to Donald Trump every single day? Don't you wish Joe Biden would do 1% of what I do to Donald Trump on a daily basis?
I mean, the whole reason why Cenk's flipping out is because he doesn't want Trump to win. And I share his concern there. My concern is that someone worse than Biden would replace him.
Look at the sorry state of the Democratic Party. And guys, can you guys just, like, I want everybody to acknowledge what they're saying is the Democratic Party is so incompetent, so pathetic that they can't find one person to beat Donald Trump, the worst, most unpopular candidate of our lifetimes. You can't find one person in the Democratic Party. No, ironically, I'm saying I believe in the Democratic Party more than you guys do. I think, yes, we could find 1, 12, 200 people that are better than Biden at beating Trump. All right, I'm out of time, but I'll read more criticism later. Thank you for sharing criticism. I don't mind it at all. That's how we learn together. We discuss and debate and we get to a better place.
I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, Derek Taylor, and Kerry Patterson. They just hit the join button below and became American heroes. We can't do the show without the members, and we love you guys for it. Vegas Jester gifted a membership. CDN Norse Dog Dragon Dog Dad, sorry, gifted 5, and Croker 47 gifted 5. Thank you for doing that for others. Fight for someone you don't know. Love you, Casper.
All right. It's well known by now that former President Donald Trump really went to great lengths in attempting to conceal or hide the fact that he was in possession of highly classified documents. But according to a new exclusive report by Jonathan Allen over at NBC, that wasn't the only place, Mar-a-Lago wasn't the only place where Donald Trump was hiding some of these confidential materials. In fact, let's watch Allen explain what the latest reporting and the latest revelations in this story entail.
Donald Trump has a post-presidential office, as all presidents do, already set up, paid for by the taxpayers, but he's handling things a little differently outside the lines.
Here's a guy who says that his name, Trump, the brand, is worth billions of dollars. If you go visit his office in West Palm Beach, Florida, it'd be hard to find the address because they don't publicize it. You would find that there's no name on the door, there's no official seal, no unofficial seal. But in addition to that, there's some really interesting things about this office. Number one, there was classified material that was sitting in that office when Mar-a-Lago was raided that was later moved to Mar-a-Lago. That's part of the reason that the Justice Department prosecutors asked Trump's team, his legal team, to start searching other places. Wow. And so this office was searched by a private firm on behalf of Trump's lawyers, but it has not been searched by the FBI, or at least there's no indication that it's been searched by the FBI. People who have seen it have said that there are boxes, bankers' boxes, like the ones you saw in Mar-a-Lago, piled all over the place.
So there's some concern that this little-known office that Donald Trump has contains more of these classified documents. And what's really interesting about the reporting here is that it appears that Trump is going to some pretty great lengths to also hide the existence of this office. So as you heard from the video, Allen mentions that Trump doesn't even have his name on the office, and he loves to put his name on everything, including his offices. And a Trump spokesperson even denied the existence of this office, even though we know that it does in fact exist. As you heard in the video, Trump's lawyers have searched this office to see if there were any additional classified documents within it. And the spokesperson told NBC News, "I've never even heard of a North Flagler office." And that's from Trump spokesperson Stephen Chung, said to NBC News when asked about the suite on Wednesday. And there is also a record of employees affiliated with Trump working at that office. So that office does in fact exist. Several Trump aides on the payroll of his Save America Political Action Committee, his 2024 presidential campaign, or both, have worked at the post-presidential office since it opened 2 years ago, according to campaign finance records and people familiar with the office. I don't understand why this man is making it so difficult for himself. Because had he turned over the classified documents as soon as the federal government asked for them, he would have never been raided and he would not be prosecuted on this issue.
I know the answer, but I'm very curious what MAGA's answer to that is. Why won't he turn over the documents? What's wrong with him? Because the excuse was, oh, that's just his memorabilia. His memorabilia is so important to him that he keeps risking whether he's gonna win the election or whether he's gonna lose to Joe Biden. You guys think Joe Biden winning is like the worst thing in the world, and he's risking that for memorabilia? Why don't you guys ask him, hey, knucklehead, why do you keep holding on to documents? Have you turned everything over? I guarantee you if you ask him right now, he's just, oh, of course I have. And then when you find out new documents that he lied to you about, you're gonna go back to no, lies are awesome. I love lies, keep telling me lies, and memorabilia is so important, you should risk the Republicans losing the election to Joe Biden. Go ahead. The same guys who chanted, let's go Brandon, are gonna be like, yes, let's make Joe Biden have a better chance of winning. Because Donald Trump wanted some papers left over from Kim Jong-un, his love letter that he bragged about. Okay, it's your funeral in that sense. I mean, look, I think the Democrats are nuts to go into this election with Biden, and I think the Republicans are nuts to go into this election with Trump. Both parties are trying so hard to lose this election. I've never seen, and they both say it's the most important election of our lifetimes. So why don't you guys pick someone with a pulse? Anyway, back to this story. FBI, you better go to West Palm Beach right now and raid the living crap out of that office. Because now, not only do we know that Trump is hiding documents there, but the whole world knows. The Chinese and the Russians and everyone else is probably rushing to that office right now to break in. So go, and don't worry about the politics. Oh, but Donald Trump's gonna cry. Who cares about his stupid crying? Go get the documents. You know, they never even found the one that he was bragging about at Bedminster, where he's like, you see, this is our war plans to attack Iran. They never found that document. I don't know if it's with Ivanka right now. I don't know, or Ivana. I don't know if it's in West Palm Beach. But hey, clown of the earth, Donald Trump, where's the goddamn document about our plans to invade Iran? Nope, go ahead, MAGA. Oh, we love the traitor, go ahead. Oh, he's anti-establishment. There's a million people who are anti-establishment. Pick someone else.
Again, I just can't emphasize enough. Had he just returned the documents when he was asked to return them, he would not have to deal with special counsel Jack Smith prosecuting him for refusing to turn the documents in. He wouldn't be prosecuted for the mishandling of classified documents. This is really a huge issue that he brought upon himself. So when you talk about the baggage that Trump has, the legal baggage that Trump has, you have to consider that this isn't some baggage that the Democratic Party forced upon him. It's baggage that he packed those bags himself. He's still packing them, and I don't understand. Like, I mean, look, you explained what you think he's doing here or what his motivations were. I think that's a good, piece of speculation. But how do you continue the nonsense after you've been indicted in the classified documents case?
Because he's pathologically stupid, he's pathologically criminal, and he's pathological liar. He can't help himself. If you said to him, hey, Donald, there's a document there that you could sell to Saudi Arabia for millions of dollars, but it could cost you your freedom. You have a 75% chance of going to jail. To turn the document over. He'd be like, no, I don't have the document. Because he can't help himself. That's why it's pathological. He's an unbelievable liar. So, okay, MAGA, here, ahead of time. Maybe it's fake news. I don't know, I didn't do the reporting, right? Maybe they go into the office and it's not true, okay? But if it is true, and he was still hiding documents when he said he turned everything over, will that affect you at all? And you know what the answer is, no. You'll pretend he was persecuted. Who the hell made him put it in the West Palm Beach office? Who made him lie? What? Pence and Biden voluntarily looked into their own apartments, the houses, etc., found some documents and handed it over. Why doesn't he just hand them over? All right. And guys, look, I'm gonna say it, I've said it before. Yes, this part is speculation. Okay, the rest of it is facts. This part is speculation. Why does he hold on to incredibly valuable documents? To sell them. Because he's a loser. He never made any money. He spent his dad's money. He's out of the money now. He spent NBC's money. He doesn't have any left. That's why he's hawking t-shirts, and you've seen it. He's hawking t-shirts. Which billionaire hawks t-shirts online when he's running for president? No, the loser lost all his money. And all of a sudden, some money comes from where? Saudi Arabia for golf tournaments. Huh? Who did he help tremendously? Saudi Arabia. And all of a sudden, his son-in-law gets $2 billion from the Saudis. Who did he help? The Saudis. And you all know it. And you all know it. And you know who would love that document about how to invade Iran? The Saudis. The top enemies of Iran. Okay, no, Donald Trump would never sell something even if he thought he could get $1 billion for it. Okay, believe any pretty little lies you want. Nothing I could do to help you.
All right, that does it for the first hour. When we come back for the second hour of the show, we sent our very own Michael Shore over to South Dakota to speak to Trump supporters at a Trump rally. We'll talk a little bit about their views on economic populism and specific issues like paid family leave when we come back.
Now I'm gonna do something very different here and read some one-star reviews of the Young Turks on Apple Podcasts. Donnie Franchise said, pretty much it's like listening to a trash compactor. Someone else said, negative, anti-American propaganda. And others said, out of context, misquotes, typical leftists who are afraid to debate, just smear. These two would be perfect for CNN or MSLSD. Well, Donnie, you might have a point, because I feel like a trash compactor right now after taking in all those garbage reviews. But thanks for listening anyway. We are, in fact, unapologetically progressive. And if you're not ready for bold commentary, then we're not the show for you. On the Young Turks, we speak up about the issues that matter, and we want to make positive change happen. And now here's why we actually do the show. Mariel Morales said, found this podcast from the True Crime Podcast, Fruit Loops, and other great progressive podcasts. I've become an instant fan of the Young Turks. Great conversation, great takes, very well composed, factual podcast, very informative. Love to hear that. Z55 said, it's a joy to experience such awareness and intelligence from fascinating people. And Anna is gorgeous and brilliant. Apparently I'm just fascinating, but I'll take it. Paul for Progress said, news well delivered. Appreciate it. KOOK said, Democrats and Republicans are fair game for TYT. And if Anna or Cenk provide disinformation about anything, they will admit they made a mistake and correct it. We appreciate you noticing that we are honest. To people who actually listen to the substance of the show, thank you. Your listenership supports what we do. Leave a 5-star rating for the Young Turks on Apple Podcasts. Let's take the ratings back from the trolls. Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. Here at TYT, we understand this. That's why we're not gonna price gouge you or use inflation as an excuse to raise our prices. A TYT membership is not your typical subscription, but basic membership is still just $4.99. So what do you get for that price? For starters, you're getting exclusive programming, unique, exclusive designs from Shop TYT, access to a members-only chat, giveaways, emojis, and so many other amazing perks. But most importantly, you're helping to make an impact. As a TYT member, you not only help us do the shows every day, but you drive real positive change in the process. In 2017, we helped to start Justice Democrats right here on TYT. That's a group that got a dozen progressives elected into Congress. That's amazing, you did that. Your support also funds TYT's very own investigative reporting. Just recently, our reporters exposed the Fellowship Foundation and pressured lawmakers into boycotting that bigoted event. Isn't that amazing? We raised over $30,000 for Jackson, Mississippi, and delivered clean water to thousands of people in need. Our petitions, polls, and community of activists help keep the corruption of Washington in check. That's the impact of what just $4.99 a month from our members can do. And we're just getting started. Positive change doesn't occur overnight, but with your contribution, we can make it happen together.
You don't see a lot of news coverage in the mainstream media of the peaceful Black Lives Matter protests that happened throughout the country.
Black Americans are hurting. Minorities in this country are hurting.
We always talk about starting from the bottom up, but the problem is the bottom up is always the least amount of power. No one cares about them, and until someone actually cares about them, then we'll do something about it.
Please, for God's sake, America, understand, acknowledge, and work towards getting to a new reality where Black lives actually matter.
I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
back on TYT, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, and R. Thank you for joining. We appreciate you. Everybody can do likewise at tyt.com/join. All right, Casper.
All right, let's get to our Trump rally-related stories, starting with this.
I caucused for Bernie, and then when he got taken out, I went to Trump. And so,
Bernie can't stand Trump.
No, that's right. But there's a lot of overlap there. It's left-wing populism and right-wing populism. It's not necessarily just Democrat, Republican. I think there's a big realignment happening.
I think he's probably right about the realignment, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But you heard from a Trump supporter in South Dakota. We sent Michael Schur over to South Dakota to speak to Trump supporters at a rally. And as you can tell from the gentleman's statements, he was a person who caucused for Bernie Sanders back in 2016. And when Bernie did not win the Democratic primary for that election cycle, he decided to vote for Trump instead and has been a supporter of Donald Trump's ever since. Here's more on why he supports Donald Trump.
You caucus for Bernie Sanders, for Senator Sanders in Minnesota. And if he were the nominee now running against Donald Trump, who would you vote for?
I'd vote for Trump still, yeah. I probably, I don't know. Back in those days, Bernie was a lot more of like an outsider and going against his party. But I think that, I think he folded, and that was an election where you had Bernie going up against the establishment of his party and Trump going up against the establishment of his party, and Trump carried that out. Bernie folded like a wet rag, and then he did it again in 2020. He let him roll him again. So no doubt in my mind, it would be Trump 100%.
So clearly, based on what I'm picking up from this guy, he is definitely an anti-establishment voter. That is what appealed to him about Bernie Sanders. I don't think Bernie Sanders sold out, but I do think that the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2020 was different from the Bernie Sanders campaign of 2016. He got a lot of backlash from bad faith establishment types who wanted him to hyper-focus on the identity politics. Let's just keep it real. And the identity politics do not mesh well with a certain contingent of that anti-establishment left-wing electorate. So they took a chance and they decided to vote for Donald Trump, who also presented himself as anti-establishment. Unfortunately, the terrible economic policies that I'm assuming that the interviewee is in favor of are not the kinds of policies that Donald Trump favored, not the kind of policies that he pushed for. In fact, one of the only accomplishments of the Trump era were the 2017 tax cuts for the rich, which did not poll well among the majority of voters. But Cenk, what do you think about this?
So I think there's two different things here. First, he's talking about the general trend, which is enormously true. Back in the day, it used to be Democrats versus Republicans. Now, we're in the middle of a realignment. We're not at the end of it, but we're also not at the beginning of it. The beginning was in 2015, 2016, right? And the realignment is now populist versus the establishment. The problem is the Democratic Party squashes all populism, so then there's no outlet for it to rationally go, because populists should rationally be for the average American. And the Republican Party was set up to serve the rich, period. And Trump proved that again today. We'll get to that in a second. Trump certainly proved it his first time around. What's the only thing he got accomplished? Giant tax cuts for corporations and the wealthy. The only thing he got done, and about 50 feet of wall in between us and Mexico. And he remembered to do the wall at the last second. You remember that? Like right before the election, he's like, oh right, the wall. I was pretending that I cared about the wall. I mean, all my friends got rich, right? And I got rich, good. All my donors got rich, excellent. Oh, right, wall, right. So the Democrats squash all and then the Republicans have fake populists. So then guys like this go, well, at least they're pretending to be populist, or he believes that they're populist out of desperation, right? And he's going to that side. Now, the second half of the conversation is about policies, and unfortunately, we never get there. So on the policies, Bernie's 10,000 times more populist than Donald Trump is. But that brother never got there because of honest, one, media, two, emotions. Like emotionally, Bernie Sanders saying, let's bow our heads to Joe Biden doesn't feel good. And if you're a populist and you're an outsider, you don't like it. It just grates on you. instinctually. I wish it didn't. Bernie's better on the policies. I'm not gonna get swayed by that, right? But a lot of people are. And we could put our head in the sand, and I know what corporate media would do. They would blame the voters. They would say, just the voters' fault. They should know that they have to vote against Donald Trump. They should know their place. Vote for the establishment and like it. But it's not gonna help. They're leaving. The only question is, are they leaving the Democratic Party to go to a progressive or to go to a fake populist in the Republican side?
Yeah, so, God, I have so many thoughts. So first off, let me just note, one of the things that I've noticed about the Biden administration and why I believe, I could be wrong about this, but why I believe Bernie Sanders has been so friendly to Biden is, yes, number one, they are legitimately friends, okay? But number two, I do think that any of the positive policies that have come out of the Biden administration have been directly influenced by Senator Bernie Sanders. So he understands that he has some sway over the administration. I think the appointments for the NLRB, which has been fantastic under Biden, influenced by Bernie Sanders. I think that the rework of the student loan debt forgiveness program, I think that I would be shocked if Bernie Sanders didn't play a role in that. I just think that there are good elements of the Biden administration, and I'd like to think that it's influenced by Senator Bernie Sanders. So when you see him being friendly to Biden, just keep that in mind in terms of why he might be doing that tactically, okay? Just putting that aside. With that said, though, I actually disagree in regard to the Democratic Party squashing populism on their side. I think that they have allowed populism to manifest in a way that is tremendously unpopular with a lot of voters, because their populism has moved away from electoral politics, and instead they lend some credibility and some merit to individuals who think that we need to destroy some of our institutions because they're inherently racist or they're inherently this or inherently that. The populism has manifested in a completely different way and has moved away from the economic stuff. So when you hear about abolishing police or abolishing prisons, right? You don't hear the Democratic Party trying to squash that message.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, Anna, but I think that we're now getting to a point where you and I would debate the terms, because I don't think what you're saying is populist at all. I think that's just part of the culture wars that the establishment plays on a regular basis to distract people. So, I mean, populist means like an uprising of popular sentiment, and that could be directed in a good way or a bad way, right? But there's no popular uprising for. But
you don't think that the economic populism has now kind of morphed into an anti-liberalism? And when I say liberal, I don't mean like conservative or liberal. I mean like liberal institutions, right? Like I'm seeing more and more of that in the Democratic Party. And I think that that is a direct result of essentially squashing the economic populist message, and all that energy instead kind of got funneled into a different direction.
So we can argue over the wording that we use on the culture war stuff, the social stuff, but the bottom line message is the same though. The Democratic Party doesn't want anything to do with economic populism.
Correct.
Because look, I wrote about it in chapter 4 of my book, Justice is Coming. The whole Democratic Party got captured by corporate rule. I explain exactly how they got captured. And I have the quotes, I have the stats. It's indisputable, okay? And so now they serve corporate interests. That's what establishment Democrats do. And that leads me back to Bernie. I understand what you're saying, and you're right that Bernie is influencing Biden in a positive direction. And I believe in being practical, so I appreciate that he's doing that on some of the issues that he is. But there's a giant cost to it. And I'm not sure that's being accounted for enough, which is now there are no progressives that are opposing Biden in Washington.
Yeah, and that is
that's a giant problem. Yeah. There's no one making our case. There's no one fighting for us. And so then it feels like the Democrats have no populism left at all on economic issues, none. And they're all saying that this guy who's clearly a corporate Democrat and clearly establishment is God's gift to progressives and populists. And that's nuts. It's just not true. And that's driving people to the right, and that is counterproductive.
Like I gotta give you an example. So there was virtually no reporting and no messaging coming from the Biden administration in regard to how he managed to fight and secure the paid time off for the rail workers, right? No reporting. I had to do digging to find that information. Okay, and the unions put out a statement thanking Biden for working out those deals and all of that stuff. Right now, the vast majority of people who followed that story only know about the fact that he called on Congress to squash a potential strike by the rail workers. They didn't get the follow-up story. So the failure of the Biden administration, in my opinion, is their inability to take credit and market themselves when they accomplish something good on the economic populism front.
So there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, Joe Biden's from the old school of Democrats, which says we shouldn't fight the Republicans, we should love them, we should never make our own case. That's low class. We're gonna be high class and stay above it. But there's another reason. The other reason is he's worried that if he brags about how much he helped labor in that rail strike after people stop paying attention, that his donors will notice and they'll punish him. Today, Donald Trump proposes to cut corporate taxes again. The world's worst populist, the most fake populist the country has ever seen.
But he's a good marketer, so he markets himself as an economic populist.
Exactly where I was going, Anna.
Yeah.
But he says he's a populist. He says he's going to keep jobs here. He says he's going to fight for the average worker. And then while you're not looking, he helps his corporate buddies.
That's right.
In a sense, he's the slimiest of the politicians. But since no one on our side is making our case, all the populists are going to the right wing because they don't think that there's an alternative on the left. And that is a cancer. And it's hurting the country massively.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, I went back to look at the numbers, the percentage of Bernie supporters, people who voted for Bernie in the Democratic primary, who then ended up voting for Donald Trump. And according to the Cooperative Congressional Election Study, which came out in 2017, about 12% of people who voted for Senator Sanders in the 2016 Democratic primaries then went on to support Donald Trump instead. And the reason why is because of the anti-establishment messaging. It appealed to a significant portion of the electorate. Now, there were some characteristics of this portion of Bernie Sanders supporters that's worth noting. For instance, they're more socially conservative, for instance. So I would venture to say that guy, I don't know for sure, and I don't mean to speculate too much about him, but just based on some of the statements that he made in the context of that interview with Michael Schor, I would venture to say that he gets turned off by, the dominant culture war narratives that have kind of controlled the Democratic Party over the last several years, and is more interested in the economic populist messaging, which he's hearing from Donald Trump. But I would just ask, and it's not just a message to him, it's a message to all of us, right? You should never believe anything a politician tells you. Do the work, do some digging, and fact check them and make sure they're actually holding true to the statements that they claim. And if they're not, then you make your decision. If you still support Trump after that, that's totally fine. That's up to you, right? Yeah. But I'm just sick of these lying politicians and all, don't just vote on vibes, vote based on the evidence. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, and Donald Trump, again, today not announced publicly, but there's a huge leak to Politico, and all his advisors are saying they're gonna go and cut corporate taxes again. They cut it from 35 to 21. Now, mind you, there's 76% of Americans who want corporate taxes to go up, not down. That's the populist position. And now Trump is gonna double down and say, no, I'm gonna lower them even lower to 15%. By the way, one of the reasons why they were leaking that is actually smart political strategy, because they know their own base won't believe it, they won't hear it, they won't believe it. They think he's a populist hero, and they don't care about facts. So, but the donors are gonna hear it, and it might neuter the donors. The donors will go, whoa, you're gonna cut my taxes again? Maybe I stop giving money to Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, and maybe you're not so bad. I don't care if you kill democracy as long as you give me a 15% corporate tax rate, which is comically low, ridiculously, pathetically low. So that's the part of the strategy here. And I just want to make a quick comment about the 12% that from Bernie that went to vote for Trump. Half of them were Republicans. We could have gotten those Republican votes, but we chose to throw them away, okay? And Hillary Clinton, 25% of her voters voted for McCain instead of Obama. Because unlike Bernie, she barely campaigned for Obama. Bernie did 40 rallies for Hillary Clinton. So I don't mind that. And guys, this is a giant difference. It's one thing to say, here's my case, I'm gonna fight you like hell, and I'm gonna represent the populace. Okay, I lost in the primary, now we make sure we defeat the fascists. And then I go back to fighting you, okay? And fighting for my positions. But no, in Washington it's binary. Either you have to support Biden 100% and bow to everything he's saying, or you're a traitor, right? And it's just not, it's not helpful. Bernie would have won on election day by 12 points. Everything you've ever heard in corporate media is a lie. They gaslight the hell out of you. If we went with a populist progressive, we would crush. Fetterman took a Republican seat in Pennsylvania pre-stroke. He had such a giant lead that he got a stroke. He couldn't speak in a debate, and he still won and took one of their seats and made it a Democratic seat because he was running as a populist progressive.
Who actually meant it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, but corporate media wants you to support only corporate politicians.
Well, we have more from the Trump rally when we come back from the break. We're also going to talk a little bit more about the plan for Trump to cut corporate taxes even further. So don't miss it. It's a massive story. We'll be right back.
All right, back on TYT. Let's go to members here. Let's go to YouTube members first. Donald's Dutyberry writes in, sitting here reading more on Williamson, I can see myself voting for her. Hey, look at that. We start talking about alternatives to Biden and people discover Marianne Williamson. That's among the reasons why you should talk about alternatives to Joe Biden. So thank you for doing that. Yes, Marianne's a real progressive and would be infinitely better than Donald Trump. CDN Norse Dog Dad writes in, I no longer have Mondays off, so I can now cannot donate on the damage report. I don't know what that means. Okay, so here I am, donated memberships on TYT. Okay, anyways, thank you for being here, brother. We appreciate you. Gail Hefner says, so grateful for TYT, Anna and Cenk, and all the other TYT hosts and staff. Truth is a balm for the soul.
Thank you.
Thank you, that's amazing. Donald James, Metal Trucker News Network writes in, just a simple thank you for the honesty. Thank you, we appreciate you. Donald James X wrote in, then why doesn't TYT advocate for Marianne or Westmore? I think I just advocated for Marianne Williamson, and I did it actually during that segment, and we've had her on a number of times. I wish she could break through more. There's a certain way to break through, but it is very, very difficult. And corporate media is enormously biased, 1 billion% biased against her. If I mention Marianne Williamson on cable news, they'll all literally start laughing out loud and like looking down their nose. And God, I loathe those people. Anyways, but I'm happy to do it. Cornel West, look, I'm happy to have anybody on, okay? But I don't think a third party is productive right now. I mean, look at how mad I am at the Democrats. If I thought a third party was viable, I'd jump on it, all right? But it's, guys, we gotta be realistic. We've got to be practical while fighting super aggressively for our side. But if I'm wrong and Cornel, who's a good person, brings himself up to 20, 30, 40 points, I don't have any loyalty to any brand or logo, okay? I just have a loyalty to the policies that deliver for you guys. So if Cornel West can do better, great. I'm super happy about it. But if he's gonna sit there and take 3 to 5 points off the board, that's gonna be a disaster because I don't want fascism. I have been super clear about that. Okay, on YouTube Super Chat, Gabby Mathis says, remember 9/11 and the many lives lost. Gabby, thank you for that message. We do, and we wish both Donald Trump and Joe Biden would remember that as they both go and try to appease the Saudis over and over again. Vega Jester, who just joined, says, thanks for pushing for change. We appreciate you, brother. We can't do it without you. And Lifetime Supply of Dragons says, they always seem to conveniently forget that Biden campaigned on being a one-term president in 2020. Another great point. But nope, that went into a wormhole for corporate media. All right, back on TYT, Jen Khanna with you guys, and Gabby Mathis, who gifted a membership. We appreciate you. Casper.
We have more from the Trump rally in South Dakota. Let's get right to it.
How do you feel about paid family leave?
I think there should be more of it, especially during like pregnancies and maternity leaves, things like that. Yeah, definitely.
While speaking to Trump supporters at a Trump rally in South Dakota, the majority of people who were willing to speak to our very own Michael Schor seemed to be very supportive of the idea of paid family leave, which is unsurprising considering the economic populist message, which is pretty much a facade that Donald Trump likes to champion during his campaigns. So let's take a look at more of the answers that we got from these Trump supporters, and then we'll give you more details on what others had to say.
Paid family medical leave. Where do you stand on that as an issue?
I think I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I think it's important. I raised my kids without it. I was self-employed, so I had to go to work every day. But I do definitely support paid family leave.
Do you have an opinion on paid family leave, whether the government should help people out when they have medical reasons not to be at work?
Depends on what it is. What kind of medical reason? Where did it come from? Did it come from work or what?
Well, work or catastrophic health emergencies, paternal leave, maternal leave, things like that.
Yeah, that's okay.
What do you think of paid family leave?
I like it. That's where I think this populist realignment is coming from. Like that, I think the pro-worker is the future of the GOP, of like MAGA. It's almost like a third party in the GOP that's trying to take it over.
And there are certainly Republican politicians who are using certain rhetoric to appear as though they are in favor of the economic populist policies that a lot of these Trump supporters are in favor of. Now, keep in mind that of the people that Michael Schor spoke to, 6 of these individuals said that they are in favor of paid family leave. 3 of them were on the fence. 2 of them said no. So let's take a quick look at the people who are not in favor of paid family leave, and then we'll discuss.
Where do you stand on the government providing paid family leave?
I don't think the government should provide everything for everybody.
But what about that specific thing?
That's up to the businesses, in my opinion.
Where do you stand on the issue of paid family leave?
I'm not in. As it stands right now, it's just another handout that defeats the purpose of business.
So I think, Cenk, you see the split in the Trump base, even in the Trump base, between the economic populists and then the individuals who are more concerned about the success of businesses, right? So, and I thought it was really fascinating that the 2 individuals who are against paid family leave, in this video at least, were 2 women. I thought that was a really surprising result, yeah.
So, but overall, that leads us to the same exact result that you see in the polling. Polling shows that 74% of Republicans want paid family leave. And out of the 8 people that had a clear opinion, 75% of them, 6 out of 8, said they wanted paid family leave, okay? We didn't rig it at all. That was just their natural, and we talked before about we don't know what they're gonna say. Make sure that you're asking it in a fair way. We want the real opinions, right? Because a lot of media pushes out their opinion, pretending to be that it's the voters' opinions. No, we're trying to get their actual thoughts on this. And so that last guy is totally right, the young guy. We showed you him in a different video where he said he used to be a Bernie supporter, now he's supporting Donald Trump. And because he wants the Workers' Party, an outsider party, populist party, anti-establishment party. And paid family leave makes corporations pay for when for some number of weeks off, 12 weeks off, when someone has a baby. So if you're a populist, you want moms to be able to take care of their baby for 12 weeks. It's not too much to ask for, right? And so that's why the populists say yes. The corporatists go, I don't want my beloved corporations paying for a single day off. No way. Back to the mines and back to the assembly lines. But even the super MAGA guy, the old guy with the hat.
I know.
And he's like, once he hears it, he's like, Michael didn't even frame it as mom's needing time off. He just said someone who was really sick. And he's like, well, that's okay.
No, I know. I did not expect that because he seemed super skeptical at first, right? He's like, oh, it depends on for what. What are we to do? Just let people be bums and just pay them for doing nothing? I think he had that kind of thought process. But once Michael gave him a very simple description, which I agree wasn't particularly like complimentary or favorable toward the policy, it was just straightforward, he was in favor of it. So look, I think that there is a clear divide in I wouldn't even say, there is a divide even among the electorate in the Republican side, right? But I do think that the majority of Republican voters do in fact favor these economic policies which would provide a little more financial stability in their lives, right? Which would allow for them to feel comfortable starting a family, knowing that if they start a family, they will not be retaliated against by their employer. They will not have to worry about losing their livelihoods for X number of weeks when they're recovering after having a baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, they favor these things because they're humans. They know what it's like to live. They know what it's like to be worried about your personal finances. But what's really fascinating is the disconnect between the electorate, the Republican electorate, which as it stands today overwhelmingly supports Donald Trump, and then the policies that Donald Trump has championed and is planning on championing if he wins president again. So I want to tell you a new report by Politico that shows that some of the closest allies to Donald Trump are currently devising a plan to lower corporate taxes even further. Trump lowered corporate taxes from 35% to 21% back in 2017. That was highly unpopular. The majority of voters didn't like that, but his advisors are now hatching up a plan to lower the corporate taxes from 21% to 15%. Initially, that is what Trump wanted, but then he eventually settled on 21%. Now, the current corporate tax rate is 21% with the deductions and corporate tax loopholes in place. Remember how Trump tried to sell it to us? Oh, this is gonna be a middle-class tax cut. It ended up being largely a corporate tax cut and a tax cut for the richest. There's some middle-class individuals who might have experienced a little bit of a tax cut, but it was nothing compared to the bulk of the tax cuts, which impacted corporations and the wealthiest. And get a load of this. Allegedly to offset the tax cuts, Trump is allegedly considering a 10% tariff on all imports into the United States. You know what that would mean, right? The tariffs wouldn't be swallowed by the corporations. No, they would pass that on to you. So not only would the corporations get a massive tax cut, if they implement the tariffs to offset this, you would essentially be paying like the money that would offset the tax cuts for the rich.
No, that's a great point by Anna. Okay, so I honestly had not connected those two things, and so think about it, guys. They're literally saying we're going to raise the money from the tariffs to pay for the tax cut. Well, she's right. They're going to pass all those costs onto you. So that way, technically, they're not raising your taxes, but in reality, they're transferring billions, maybe trillions of dollars in taxes from corporations onto the middle class in America. And so, look, I get the con that the Republican Party has been running their whole lives and that Donald Trump has put on steroids, which is, oh, we're for the average American. And meanwhile, they're taking the money out the back to the rich, to corporations, etc. Literally what the Republican Party was designed to do, okay? And they've always been the pro-business party, pro-corporation party, pro-rich party, okay? And everybody knows this.
That hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed at all.
The rhetoric might have changed, but the actual policies and the actions has not changed.
And even with so-called populist Donald Trump, he cut taxes for corporations more than any other Republican. So, okay, but the Democrats, look at them willingly giving away elections. Paid family leaves at 84%, 74% with Republicans. If they campaigned on it, they'd get a ton of voters. They raising corporate taxes, raising taxes on the rich, polls at 76%. 3/4 of the country again. And then every once in a while, Biden will mention it, but then did he actually raise the taxes when he had a chance to? Nope, he left the corporate taxes exactly where Trump had them. Oh, golly gee, there was nothing I could do about that. I passed bills that help corporations, like the semiconductor bill. I found a way to get $54 billion to my donors. But when it came to raising their taxes, oh golly gee, there was nothing I could do. Paid family leave, nothing I could do. Public option, nothing I could do. Higher wages, nothing I could do. Okay, why? If they ran on those, they win easy. They already have 50% of the country that despises Donald Trump. All they need is just a little extra more. And they could easily get it with these proposals, but no, serving their corporate donors is more important to the Democratic Party than winning elections. Fact.
That's right. All right, let's move on to something entirely
I'm sorry.
in a second.
Yes, forgot to mention. Also, guys, there is something you can do about it. We try to empower you. And look, we try our best. Not everything works, but if we keep doing things together, we're gonna break through. So we're asking you to sign a paid family leave petition. And a lot of you have already signed it. So go to tyt.com/petitions, sign this one. And I'm asking, by the way, right-wingers to sign this too, because right-wingers agree with us. The whole country agrees with us. Pass paid family leave. And then if you want, take it to Trump, take it to Biden, take it to anyone you like, and say, why aren't you doing something that the overwhelming majority of your voters want?
Yep. All right, let's move on to something entirely different. Some foreign policy with a little Elon Musk sprinkled in, unfortunately.
Starlink is an important part of their success, and as I said, we expect that it will continue to be so.
It sounds like Starlink's so important the US government doesn't want to risk offending a capricious billionaire who did some things that I think in another situation the US government might want to say something about, but let's move on.
I think Jake Tapper might have a point. Now, what they're discussing here, of course, is Elon Musk and his Starlink satellites, which are providing some military capabilities to Ukraine in their fight against Russia. Now, Secretary of State Antony Blinken refused to condemn Elon Musk following author Walter Isaacson's claim that the billionaire sabotaged a Ukrainian offensive against Russia. And he would have the ability to do that because he controls the Starlink system. Now, regardless of your thoughts on the war in Ukraine, that is not what this conversation is about. We're not having a conversation about whether or not the US should be involved in that war. For the purposes of this discussion, we're gonna focus on whether it makes sense to allow for a single billionaire to have that much power over foreign policy, over what transpires in this war between Russia and Ukraine. Now, Musk got a lot of harsh criticism after the report that I was referencing. However, just a quick caveat that I think is important. Isaacson has since issued a major retraction of his original statement. So the following is the original excerpt from Isaacson's novel, which was published in the Washington Post back on September 7th. The excerpt has since been revised, but we accessed the original excerpt via the Wayback Machine. So this is what he initially wrote. In September of 2022, the Ukrainian military was attempting a sneak attack on the Russian naval fleet based at Sevastopol in Crimea by sending 6 small drone submarines packed with explosives, and it was using Starlink to guide them to the target. Although Musk had readily supported Ukraine, he believed it was reckless for Ukraine to launch an attack on Crimea. He had just spoken to the Russian ambassador to the United States. The ambassador had explicitly told him that a Ukrainian attack on Crimea would lead to a nuclear response. Throughout the evening and into the night, Musk personally took charge of the situation, allowing the use of Starlink for the attack he concluded would be a disaster for the world. So he secretly told his engineers to turn off coverage within 100 kilometers of the Crimean coast. As a result, when the Ukrainian drone subs got near the Russian fleet, they lost connectivity and washed ashore harmlessly. Now, Walter Isaacson issued the revision, as I mentioned earlier. So it was about a day after the report, and here's what he wrote. To clarify on the Starlink issue, the Ukrainians thought coverage was enabled all the way to Crimea, but it was not. They asked Musk to enable it for their drone sub attack on the Russian fleet. Musk did not enable it because he thought, probably correctly, that would cause a major war. So there is a little bit of a difference in the revised statement that I think is worth acknowledging here. So I wanted to share that with you. But nonetheless, I mean, keep it real. Musk is able to call some shots in regard to the war in Ukraine and the type of military capability Ukraine has as a result of their reliance on Starlink. And I think Antony Blinken, along with the Pentagon, doesn't really want to ruffle Musk's feathers too much, because that technology is really critical for Ukraine. And we know that Elon Musk is temperamental and might melt down if he gets criticized too much, and might actually, do away with that capability entirely. So I think that's why Blinken is careful. This is my speculation, but I'm curious what you think, Cenk.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things in here, and they don't fall neatly into one category or another. So first, to be fair to Elon Musk, he's not enabling them to hit close to Russia. I probably agree with that, to be honest, but I'm not positive because I don't know all the details. If I was in his situation, obviously I'd have a lot more information, right? But I'm not complimenting him because I might agree with him on where he drew the line. But here's the part nobody tells you, which is that without Starlink, and hence without Elon Musk, Ukraine wouldn't have been able to do any of the strikes that they have been doing against Russia. Starlink is enabling them to get real-time information that is allowing them to rout the Russian army. And that's for the great majority of Ukraine. That is why the Ukrainians are very careful in how they criticize Elon Musk. And that's also why Anthony Blinken had to hold his fire there. Now, if you watch Young Turks at all throughout these 21 years, you know I do not like Democrats holding their fire, right, and keeping their powder dry. But in that case, it makes sense because you piss off Musk. What if he turns off Starlink for all of Ukraine? Then the Ukrainians are in a lot of trouble, okay? So give him credit for setting up an amazing system. Give him credit for letting the Ukrainians use it 90% of the time, right? In my opinion. And even if you disagree with him on the parts where he doesn't allow it. But Jake Tapper's not wrong either.
Right.
He is mercurial and they're worried about upsetting him. And that's why our Secretary of State is tiptoeing around the issue. That is true.
That is true. And look, whether you agree with what Musk is doing or not, whether you acknowledge that this technology is critical for the Ukrainians, all of that, put it aside for a second. I think the core of the question is, does it make sense to have a single billionaire have this much power over a war abroad?
I hear you, but that is, so now let me give both sides of that. Number one, I'm deeply concerned about what Walter Isaacson is saying here. We're kind of burying the lead. He's saying that he almost has multiple personalities, Elon Musk does.
Yeah, we have a video on that.
Yeah, so let's show that because that informs this part of the conversation.
Let's go to the next video.
He has so many personalities, almost like multiple personalities. And it's a bit like his father, whom he doesn't speak to now, but his father is a Jekyll and Hyde and sometimes goes very dark. And it happens to Elon too. He'll go from being very giddy or being in engineering mode where he can figure out the valve of a Raptor engine. And suddenly the clouds come. And the amazing thing is after he's gone dark and been demon-like and really tough on people, he'll snap out of it. And then I'll ask him, what was that all about? And he hardly remembers it. So when you ask about what's it like dealing with Elon Musk, I say, there are many Elon Musks in this book.
Great.
Okay, so guys, this explains a lot because we've been asking on the show ever since Musk became a famous figure, who's the real Elon Musk? On the one hand, he sets up Starlink, which is amazing, Tesla, which is in a lot of ways amazing. On the other hand, he looks like a buffoon running Twitter. So which one is it? It turns out it's D, all of the above. And that comment about multiple personalities and demon-like when he goes into the dark, I mean, you want to talk about dark Brandon, there's dark Elon, right? And that's a guy who had complete access to him. Like Trump, Elon Musk thinks, oh, if I give them access, they're gonna love me. I don't know, Isaacson saw the real Elon Musk or the several Elon Musks. So that to me is gigantic. And now back to Starlink and the Ukrainians. Well, do you want a guy with multiple personalities running something that is a matter of life and death like this? On the other hand, so what could possibly be? But he's the guy who set it up in the first place. The government wouldn't have had it.
I know, but Jake,
the US or the Ukrainian government without him.
I know, I get that, I get that it took Elon Musk to develop that technology and provide it for the Ukrainians, right? And that is, I guess, a point in the direction of those in favor of the free market and the innovation that it provides. But I just have a question for the Pentagon, which has failed every single audit that it has undergone in 5 years in a row. Where exactly does the $800 billion go? Does any of it go toward any research and development? Because why is it that it took Elon Musk to develop this? Where does all that money that we provide for the Pentagon actually go, right? And why aren't we providing the technology if it's so critical? The idea that we should have one unelected billionaire make decisions and call the shots in regard to our foreign policy, it's insane.
Yeah, so look at how fair we are. Elon Musk is these days a kind of a wacky right winger. We're not in favor of him. But at the same time, we're having a real conversation that tells you both sides of the story. And I don't know what to do about it. Okay, we're uncomfortable that this wealthy guy, I mean, it's like a sci-fi movie, gets to control who wins and who loses in wars. They could have sunk a giant part of the Russian fleet in that particular story they're referencing if Starlink was up in that portion of Ukraine, okay? So, which is the part that is near Crimea, near Russia, and near Russian-controlled territory. So I'm very uncomfortable, but I don't know what to do about it. What are you going to do? You seize the company? No, I don't think that's a good idea.
I don't think we should. No, you can't do that, right? I think that would be wrong, right? And there's no way. There's like no appetite to do that anyway among those in our federal government. But I just think it's so incredible that, again, we are funded. Like, we're also paying for Starlink. We're paying for that capability in Ukraine. So like, obviously, I mean, the military wants that technology for Ukraine, so we, the taxpayers, are paying the billionaire for that technology on behalf of Ukraine. Yeah. Like, think about that as well. So we are paying $800 billion a year on the defense budget, which provides nothing at this point. I mean, you see the way our soldiers are treated, both in the pay for active duty members of the military and also for our veterans and how they're treated after they serve their time. And then on top of that, rather than actually innovating and building the technologies ourselves as part of the government, as part of the Defense Department, we're leaving that to the billionaires who are also getting paid for it on top of what we're spending on the military.
And guys, there's part of that reporting was that Elon Musk talked to some Russian officials and made a decision accordingly. Now, if you're a right winger and you love Elon Musk and you think, well, that's okay, I like that he's working with the Russians, but mainly helping the Ukrainians, I like where he's drawing the lines. Think about this hypothetical. We're attacked here in America and Elon Musk decides he likes the Russians better and he's turning it off in America. Uh-oh, that is a lot of power in one guy. But there's one thing we can all agree on, which is a point Anna made about the Pentagon. What the hell are we giving you nearly $1 trillion a year for? If you say, well, I gotta give it to Elon's company because we're so incompetent we can't produce anything. Then why am I giving you $800 billion? Why? And you all know why. They're taking half that money, which is totally unaccounted for, and putting it in their pocket. They're robbing us blind. And corporate Democrats and corporate Republicans are thrilled to let them rob us to oblivion. Do your goddamn job. Do actual defense of this country and our allies, and we wouldn't be in this problem.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Back on TYT. Don't forget to check out our podcasting network. And on Twitch, it's September, that 25% off of subs that you buy on Twitch or that you gift on Twitch. So appreciate you. All right, L. Lorraine writes in on Super Chat on YouTube. Keep working on it. Thank you for that short encouragement. I appreciate it, I really do. We will keep working on it. Mike Guitar Wolf Gaming writes in with something really interesting. I'm of a lower class, work hard, doing my best kind of doing my best, basically. It's crazy to see how nuts and upside down everything is. No facts, reasoning, and no real talk. I'm tired of being scared. Stay true. Okay, look, Mike, our promise to you is we're gonna stay true. And we're gonna keep calling out the BS wherever it comes from. And that's our job, and that's what we're gonna deliver for you.
Also, Mike, look, I felt the fear that you're feeling right now, and it was because I personally bought into certain narratives that were playing out in legacy corporate media. But you don't be scared, okay? Because there's a lot of sensationalism, there's a lot of hyperbole. We're gonna keep it honest on this show. We're gonna keep it real with you. Don't buy into fear-mongering tactics, whether it comes from the right or the left, okay? So we're gonna do our best job in kind of breaking these stories down and helping you digest them in a way that's actually based in reality. But I'm not scared anymore. Like, I see the world for what it is, and yes, there are scary outcomes if we don't fight and ensure that we prevent terrible people from basically taking over our democratic process and our democratic institutions. And I don't mean Democrat with a capital, I mean lowercase Democrat. But nonetheless, don't be worried. We're gonna keep fighting. It's gonna be okay.
Mike, does it look like they're gonna be able to get me to stop fighting? No, I'm gonna fight them with every breath I have. Derek Taylor says, here we go again. I became a member to just tell you about having Professor Lichtman on your show. He has correctly predicted presidential elections since 1980. So Derek's the one that's been saying, no, Biden's awesome and this Professor Alan Lichtman is gonna prove it. Wait till you hear the next breaking news story, so stay right here. But sure, I'll have Alan Lichtman on. I'm not afraid of talking to anyone. I'm for open discussion, debate, you name it.
Totally.
So if he has this miraculous point about how Biden's gonna win, I'm ready to hear it.
By the way, thank you for being a member.
I
hope you stay
appreciate
a
that.
member.
Yeah, definitely. Matt as Jank wrote in on Twitch, the only other way Biden can win is, besides legalization of pot, is to make a plan to secure women's rights and put a plan together to make abortion legal on a national level. That's right, there's things like that he can do. But is he gonna do it? No, he's hiding in a cave somewhere. All right, we'll have more in a sec.
I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
All right, back on TYT, Jen and Khanna with you guys, and Dragon Lord, who gifted 5 Young Turks memberships. We appreciate your breaking news.
All right, well, President Joe Biden is dealing with intense backlash after he made some statements to commemorate the tragic events of September 11th, 2001. Now, he is the first sitting president who did not visit New York on the 9/11 memorial, and he decided to give a speech from Alaska instead. Now, what he said during that speech is what is leading to a lot of backlash. Let me give you his statement and then I'll explain. He said, "Ground Zero in New York. I remember standing there the next day after the attack and looking at the building. I felt like I was looking through the gates of hell. It looked so devastating," Biden claimed during the speech. However, many social media users, including the Republican National Committee, were quick to point out that Biden was actually in Washington, D.C. the day after 9/11. He was not in New York. In fact, he did not visit New York until about a week later. So these kinds of errors are pretty common with Joe Biden. Some are saying that this is the worst example yet. One of the other examples is he noted that his son, Beau, died while he was serving in the military. That was not the case. He also made some statement about fighting alongside Mandela.
I have that.
Go ahead.
Okay, so guys, this is a terrible, I don't know whether to call it a lie or a mistake, but Biden has an enormous history of hyperbole and oftentimes outright fabrication. So the media tracked Donald Trump's lies, and they should have, and they were legendary. But Joe Biden has a pretty rich history of lies himself. And so saying you were there on 9/11, you don't think people were gonna look that up? All right, let me give you the South Africa one. He said, this day 30 years ago, Nelson Mandela walked out of prison and entered into discussions about apartheid. I had the great honor of meeting him. I had the great honor of being arrested with our UN ambassador on the streets of Soweto, trying to get to see him on Robben's Island. That did not happen. He just made that up. Okay, so like when I mentioned that during the primaries in 2020, the mainstream media basically ripped our heads off. And Democrats ripped our heads off. Everybody did. You can't talk about how Joe Biden lies like that. Why aren't you guys talking about it? It is awfully relevant, right? No, because he was running against Bernie Sanders and they couldn't imagine Bernie Sanders winning. So now you're still gonna prop this guy up? TYT.com/dropout. He's gotta drop out. He's gotta drop out. If it's the most, you can't say it's the most important election of our lifetimes and Joe Biden should be our candidate. Those two things do not make logical sense. He's in the 30s in polling. He's 15 points lower than he was, and he makes up outrageous lies like this.
Yeah, and I mean, the dogpiling on social media is currently taking place, and look, if it had happened once, you could maybe make the argument that he misspoke, that he meant to say, when I was there a week later, I saw what it looked like at ground zero, it was devastating. But he misspoke. Sometimes when you're speaking off the cuff, that happens. But this is yet another example in a long history of weird lies that unsurprisingly really make him the hero of the story. You know what I'm saying? Like the Mandela story or the Mandela lie is an example, or it embellishes the situation with half-truths or just flat out lies that make him a more sympathetic figure. It's just bad all around, and it's, look, whether he's lying or whether it's an issue with his memory, both options are terrible. Both possibilities are terrible.
Exactly, and he gives, whenever he does these lies, he bothers to make up a lot of details.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I was looking at the gates of hell. No, you weren't even there. How do you think you're not gonna get caught on that? There's only two options. One is, a little like Trump, you're a pathological liar and you just cannot help yourself. The other option is, you've forgotten everything. Neither one of those options plays well. Get out of the race. Guys, it's incredibly selfish for him to say, this is the most important race. We could lose democracy if we don't win this race. And even though I'm in this state, which you can all see with your own eyes, and I'm deeply unpopular, I'm gonna run because it's my ego that's on the line. I wanna be a 2-term president and not a 1-term president. Well, even if he said, hey, listen, I'm dying to run to get you some policies, I could say, hey, brother, I don't think you're the right guy for it, but at least he's fighting the right day. He hasn't named a single policy he's gonna run on. He doesn't care about the policy, he cares about his ego. Well, I'm saying it. I'm saying tyt.com/dropout. We'll have the link in the description box. Get it to 1 million. Get him to drop out. I'm not running. No way. No way. This is a disaster. I'm not signing on to a disaster. No. You guys are, if you're in the establishment media, establishment politicians, you're all wrong. If you're progressives in Washington backing this guy, you're wrong. You're 100% wrong. He's headed to a certain defeat. Certain defeat.
The other thing I'm genuinely concerned about with Biden is, you're right in that he hasn't really highlighted why he wants to run again. Like, what would he want to accomplish? It's more about, no, I just want to run again. I want to be a 2-term president.
Selfish.
Yeah, yes, there is a selfish element of that. But what is he planning on running on? A big part of his campaign is going to be, you have to vote for me because Donald Trump is a fascist, he's a threat to our democracy. It's harder to make that argument when the vast majority of Democratic voters in poll after poll want someone else in the race. That goes against the will of the voters, which sounds pretty undemocratic. And after you said you were only gonna run for 1 term. Remember?
Yeah, and by the way, he lied about that too. He said, I'm only gonna run for 1 term. Where is it? No, ego. It's all about his ego. I understand why he wants to do it. I understand why the kiss asses in Washington love sucking up the power and why they want to do it. What's our excuse? What's the excuse of everyone who should be in this race and isn't? What? Because we don't want to disrespect the powerful? Joe Biden has a lot of power, so we should all obey him? No, we should not obey him. I'm not supporting a guy who lies like this. I'm not gonna do it. TYT.com/dropback. Get out of the goddamn race. If you're in this race, you're saying there's not a single Democrat that could win this race that isn't Joe Biden, meaning I think our party's pathetic. Donald Trump's a maniac, a lunatic, but no one in the Democratic Party can beat him. That is an outrageous statement, and that is a statement against the Democratic Party. Or you're saying, I don't care about anything. I love my ego. I'm the most selfish man in America. That's what Joe Biden's saying right now. TYT.com/dropout. We'll see you in the postgame.
Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers